Section 310 concerns ratios and then also unit rates. So to start with, the definition, a ratio is a comparison between two numbers. And so there are a couple of different ways that, well, actually 3 different ways that we can write a ratio commonly. One is as a fraction, a over b. Another one is to separate the numbers with a colon, a colon b. And then also we could say a to b, so the word to. And so we can compare two numbers using our as a ratio. For example, though, we will find often that we're given values that could be compared but aren't specifically a single number. So if we're given numbers like 1 1/3 to 4 2/3, from a certain standpoint, this is still a ratio, but it's not two numbers. It's two mixed numbers, a whole number part and a fraction part. So if we really wanted to write this as a ratio, what we would need to do is convert these to improper fractions and then simplify them down to a single fraction. So to convert this to an improper fraction, remember I take the whole number, 1, in the case of this first mixed number, so it's 1 times the denominator, 3, and then add that to the current numerator, and then put it all over whatever the original denominator was. And for our purposes, I'm going to say 2. And then I do the same thing to this second one. So the whole number part is 4 times the denominator, 3. Add that to the numerator and put it all over the denominator. Okay, so then we could simplify that down. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, still over 3. And that is compared to 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14, and that's also over 3. Okay, so that's good, but it's still not two numbers, it's two fractions. So if I've got two fractions, the way that I would know to simplify this is through using complex fractions. So I can switch between one method of writing down a ratio, like a to b. I can switch that over to another form of writing a ratio, like a over b. So 4/3 to 14/3 is really the same thing as saying 4/3 over 14/3. And now this, we know how to simplify. So I'm going to separate this out and write it over here to give us a little bit more room. 4/3 over 14/3 is a complex fraction, and we know that the method for evaluating a complex fraction is to switch this to a division problem. So 4/3 divided by 14/3. Remember that these two signs are really saying the same thing. I'm just writing it differently. And now that is an analogous problem to a multiplication problem where the second fraction is the reciprocal of the first. Okay. So 4/3 divided by 14/3 is really the same thing as saying 4/3 times 3/14, or 3 over 14. All right, but we can simplify this a little bit before we multiply. I know that 3 and 3 will cancel out and leave 1 in their place. And then 4 and 14 have a 2 in common. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 goes into 14 7 times. So really this whole fraction, when I multiply across, 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 7 is 7. So this whole thing of 1 and 1/3 to 4 and 2/3 is simplified down to saying 2/7 or 2 to 7. Or you could write it as 2:7. All of these are equivalent in form when we're talking about a ratio. And so if I'm given some sort of mixed number, then I do have a method by which I can convert that to a proper ratio.